Welcome to the New Jersey Real Estate Show. Now, here are your hosts, Tim Waller and Matt Joseph.
He's got more aliases than I have. Hi, it's Tim Waller and Matt Joseph from the New Jersey Real Estate Show, and today we have a very, very interesting topic as we're going to discuss the home buying and selling process through the eyes of the attorney. And I'm very excited and pleased to have here in studio today with myself and Matt, Mr. Matt Pertiello from the law offices of Joseph C. Pertiello, which are located right here in Wayne, New Jersey. Matt, I've known you for what, 4 or 5 years?
Yeah, 4 or 5 years now, Tim.
And I've known your dad for over 20 years.
That's
and
right.
I have to say that he's one of the most honorable individuals I've ever had the luxury of working with. He's a stand-up guy, and the old cliche is, the apple doesn't fall far from the tree. So Matt and I would like to welcome you to the show. And
Welcome, Matt.
Yay. And if you would be so kind to tell us a little bit about yourself and how this whole legal process in New Jersey works for both buying and selling a home.
All right, Tim. Well, first and foremost, thank you for the introduction to you and Matt as well. A pleasure to be here. And right off the bat, thank you for the kind words about my father. I hope to live up to the platitudes.
Make sure you tell him I said that.
I will. Yeah, so just a little bit about us. And again, thanks for the invitation. My family firm has been practicing residential real estate law in northern New Jersey, out of the Wayne area here, for 37 years. Property is what we do. We're going to start talking about a little bit down the road about the process. But you do want to make sure that you use, when you're buying and selling a home, you want to make sure that you use an attorney that does this kind of work. And property is what we do. You never give the office a call and, Matt's at a criminal matter or Matt's at a family mediation for the next 3 days and he'll get back to you. This kind of work is what we do on a daily basis. And we'll talk more about that, I know, as we move forward. But yeah, again, a family firm, my father and I, the two principal attorneys, and then our staff. We have the legal assistants, we have the short sale team, which we'll talk about before. And while, I stay more on the residential side of it, my father does the commercial side of it. So from the smallest co-op to 3 weeks ago, we got 240 units approved in North Haledon. So the biggest land development project you could think of as well. We're kind of that first phone call. While my father's on the commercial side of it, I do the residential. Not only do we do the straight sales, which we'll talk about, but also the deficiency sales and the harder cases as well. We could talk later on about short sales or loan mods or deeds in lieu, as well as opportunities for a more sophisticated buyer, or sometimes your seller will find themselves in that position where that's the way to solve the issue. Tim, you have personal experience with the office, and one of the things that is the reason why we work well together is that communication is key. That communication between the team, and again, we'll get to all of these as we do, but communication between the team, communication between the attorney-client, the realtor-client, and the various other settlement providers, as we get to train down the tracks. And again, thank you for the invitation.
Oh, you're very welcome, Matt. And again, we're glad to have you here. What I'd like to ask you is, for a first-time home buyer, buying a home can be a daunting task. There's so many unknowns for that particular buyer. So one of the questions that I have, if a buyer is looking for a home, should they not first find and have an attorney lined up, so when in fact they do find that perfect home, their offer is accepted, they don't have to worry about scurrying and maybe making the wrong decision and finding the right attorney that's going to represent them on probably the largest purchase they're ever going to make in their lifetime?
Certainly, that absolutely is the case. And the settlement providers that we're going to talk about today, they operate as a team, and that team comes together in stages, as I'm sure we'll get to. First and foremost, if you're in the market to buy a house, the first thing you need to know is what's your budget. And you'll be a banker, and you'll talk about that, Tim, and I know you have future episodes as well. The first place you want to go is to a banker. How much can we afford? What per month? What's the debt to income ratio? What are our assets? What are our liabilities? And how much home can we afford? And then after you find that you can afford a $100,000 home or a $500,000 home, the next step is to engage your realtor. And Tim, I need 5 bedrooms. I need 2 bedrooms. I need this amount of bathrooms. I'm looking for an upgraded house. I'm looking for a fixer-upper. I'm looking, for a condo. I'm looking for a single family. I'm looking for a townhouse. And then once that conversation starts with the realtor, to tell you the truth, that's kind of the time to engage an attorney as well, because you want that attorney you want that file to be ready. You want to, especially as a buyer, we'll talk about the attorney review process, and you want your attorney to be as efficient as possible getting into, and more importantly, getting out of attorney review. So engaging your attorney early on allows that attorney to open the file, the intake, just some basic intake procedures with my office, right? And from the buy side, we're talking about the buyer's information form, some information about the ownership, some information about the house itself, some information about the lender that you've chosen. Lets us open our file, lets us get a head start on title, so that when the attorney review letter comes in, when the contract comes in, we're able to start attorney review. And in my office, we always aim to start attorney review same day. No one is perfect, of course, but we always try to get those attorney review letters out for two reasons. One, having your attorney review letter out first is an advantage to you, whether you're on the buy or the sale side. And two, especially on the buyer side, which we're speaking of, to get in and out of attorney review quickly is imperative, in that during that attorney review process, either party can cancel the contract for any reason. They don't need legal justification. They can cancel for any reason. So as a buyer, when you have your accepted offer in, you want to get out of attorney review because, for example, if a weekend passes and they have another open house and get another offer that may be superior to yours, they could cancel for any reason. So you always want to engage your attorney kind of early on, and really the earlier the better. There's no harm, right? Because our fees for such things customarily in the area are closing costs, right? We get paid at closing. So to engage that attorney early on isn't any money out of your pocket and just puts you in a better position to succeed.
When you say early on, how early? Like, do you want to have your attorney first, or do you want to have a realtor first, or what would be the way to go?
Sure. What I was saying before, again, it starts with the bank. It starts with the money, right? How much house we could afford. And then when you engage an attorney, when you engage a real estate agent and you start going around and Tim starts taking you to the open houses or the listings that he's selected for you, that is the right time to engage an attorney. Okay. Again, give that attorney that head start so that you're ready and he's ready to, and he or she is ready to move forward as soon as that contract comes in, because again, it's to your advantage.
Go ahead.
And for all first-time home buyers out there, the best advice that I can give you is you find a real estate agent you like, trust, and have confidence in. You give that agent your loyalty, and they will find you that perfect home. And so many times, agents take buyers out and they show buyers houses without that buyer ever getting pre-approved, and you see something that you can't afford. How are you going to buy something that you can't afford?
Right.
So the first step is get pre-approved, get the mortgage, find the attorney, have the home inspector lined up. It's your party of four, your group of four.
And how would a buyer find out if an attorney they plan to hire practices in real estate?
Sure. And actually, it's a good question, and one that kind of parlays into what Tim just said. And let me first say this. And when you're selecting your settlement team in general, you want to have a team that is professional, a team that has experience, a team that does this especially full time. Take someone Tim for an example, right? If you choose Tim as your real estate agent, you are dealing with someone with 30 years experience. You are dealing with someone, almost more importantly, does this full time. You are not taking on a part-time agent who may have another day job during the day. You want to understand as a buyer, remember, Tim's fee, real estate agent fees are paid by the seller. So that is no concern. What you want to make sure is that you're getting the best professional in our area that you can. And Tim certainly is one of them.
Matt, let me ask you this question. A lot of times buyers purchase a home, they go to their attorney, the attorney review starts, and all of a sudden the letter comes and it says, I hereby disapprove of the contract in its present form, and the buyer gets all upset because they think they don't have a house. Maybe you can explain why that is and how, in fact, the attorney review came to be in the state of New Jersey.
Sure, absolutely. And I'll get back to your question about how to make sure a real estate attorney does this on a full-time basis as well. But attorney review, you never want to get, as a buyer, especially as a first-time buyer, one of the main things we were talking about is getting someone that you know and trust to represent you. And you don't want kind of the legalese or the language that goes back and forth to, kind of overreact to that, right? Sometimes I tell my clients, I'll let you know when to get excited, So you don't want to, overreact to language that attorneys see every day on a daily basis, people that do what I do 10 times a day, right? The language is necessary per statute. There is a statutory and contractual right to attorney review. And in the state of New Jersey, you have a 3-day time frame in which to enter attorney review. Now, let me be a little clear on that. So again, don't be dissuaded by the disapproval language. It comes up on every contract. And what right that gives is that both attorneys, of course, have a right to review that contract. And that attorney review period must start within the first 3 days of the fully executed contract. That means it's fully signed by all parties, of course.
And each party's received the copy.
Right, and delivery counts as well. So once that contract is executed and delivered, you have 3 days in which to enter attorney review. Now, that's that disapproval language. That's what the attorneys send. Sometimes they just send a letter disapproving. Sometimes they send a letter disapproving plus their proposed changes. But that kind of opens up the attorney review period. And sometimes with a lot of first-time home buyers, they hear that 3-day time frame, and they think that attorney review is going to be over in 3 days, that there's a limit that it has to end in 3 days as well. That's not correct. It has to begin within that 3-day time period. Attorney review takes as long as it takes. Generally, it takes 2 to 3 days. I had a file that had an oil tank issue, Tim. I'm sure you deal with a million of these. That took 5 weeks, although that is, of course, so rare, right? It took 5 weeks.
The bubbling crude.
Yeah, right? And it was me. There was an oil tank issue. It was an FHA loan. The sellers were divorced. They had 2 attorneys on that side of it. But that's obviously a rare exception. 95% are concluded within 2 or 3 days of attorney review. So again, don't get too sweet about the language.
Okay.
Matt,
so what is the answer to my question?
Sure. Let me get back to your question. So how to make sure an attorney does this full time? And again, what I was saying before, it's just as important to choose a real estate agent who does this full time. But you also want to use an attorney that does this on a daily basis, right? So some questions that you could ask an attorney, because you should always have a preliminary conversation with anybody that you're going to choose to get involved in this big of an endeavor. Tim, you said before, a lot of times buying and selling a home is the biggest financial transaction of someone's life, and it should be treated with that kind of attention, respect, and dignity. So you want to make sure this attorney does it. And the easiest question, Matt, to ask is how many closings did you have this week?
Okay.
Because if you do this on a daily basis, that answer is right off the top of your head, and it's multiple. It doesn't have to be 4 a day, but they should be doing it multiple times a week, a few times a week at least, because then they are up to date with the various idiosyncrasies kind of that go into this. They're up to date with people that they refer, right? They're up to date with home inspectors and what's going on, and they're dealing with this on a daily basis. Most importantly, their staff is geared up to do it on a daily basis as well, because if the staff is distracted by family or civil matters, to get to kind of switch gears into this, they're not a factory for it, So how many closings did you do this week is the first and foremost, the easiest way to find out. And it doesn't have to be 50, it could be 3, and that guy still does it every week, because a lot of people that do what I do are one-man shops.
Okay.
Right. So that attorney that does 3 a week is just as experienced as the attorney in the big firm that has a staff of 40 that's doing 50 a week.
Okay.
But that's the easiest question, and that's really it. I mean, if that guy is doing that guy or girl or woman is doing that on a daily basis, then that's the kind of experience you want. Again, just like Tim, you want somebody that does it full time.
Yeah, because I've had experiences where they said, well, I have a friend of a family that's an attorney, and I say, well, do they practice real estate? Well, that's not their forte. They're really into criminal or personal injury. And although I have to be careful because it is family, I have to warn them that, again, you're making the largest purchase you're going to make in your lifetime, and you need to have that team that's cohesive and has that synergy that's going to make things happen. And sometimes people end up finding out the hard way.
So to simplify it then, any lawyer in New Jersey can do this, but you want to make sure that you have somebody who does it often enough where they're going to be up to date and they're going to be able to steer you through the waters correctly.
That's correct.
Okay.
Any lawyer in the state of New Jersey, the way the ethics rules and the bar is set up here, any lawyer in the state of New Jersey can do any job that any lawyer can do. That any lawyer can do.
It's not like doctors where you have a specialist and in one part of the body and everything like that. Like any lawyer can practice anything.
That's exactly right. There are certified civil trial attorneys and criminal, but any lawyer in the state of New Jersey can do anything. So that's why that preliminary conversation with them, as as to what do you do on a daily basis is so important. And just quick to add on what you said, Tim, not only the attorney that doesn't do it full time, but another story that we hear very often when they're calling my office in a panic after a few days is, I used my brother's cousin's friend who was going to do it for cheap. And, I went with that guy because he cost $18 less than somebody who does it on the...
You get what you pay for.
Yeah, exactly.
You want to be careful about that too. You want to be careful. You want to use somebody who does it on a daily basis. It's a huge deal for you, and you should, you want an attorney that is on the same page.
And Mr. Pertiello, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but licensed realtors in the state of New Jersey cannot give legal advice. So realtors really have to be careful as to how they advise their clients, even when going over the contract for sale.
Absolutely. Absolutely. You want to be, and someone, Tim, obviously you have a license as well, and you have to stay within the bounds of that license. And while we're both kind of in the service industry, we do our own job. And, one of the biggest deals for a purchaser is to put that settlement team together that will be successful so that each one does what they're good at. And you don't really want to be stepping over on anyone. You want that team to work cohesively together. So, yeah, you always want to be careful if, just speaking to you, if a client's asking you about, what does this clause about the inspection say, or what does this clause about the mortgage contingency say? You always want to, make sure that you're directing legal advice and legal questions to
Now,
an attorney.
I want to bring something up which we're going to get into in another episode regarding home inspections. Attorneys, which you're there to protect your client's interest, whether it be on the buy side or the sell side. But what I find unconscionable in this business as licensed realtors is when you go to the home inspection phase, whether I'm the listing agent or the selling agent, I make it a point to be present at that home inspection because I need to know if there's any problems. I have to physically see that.
Right.
So when the report comes, it usually goes to the attorney, and then the attorneys end up negotiating the inspection issues, whether it be a credit or the seller is going to fix it. My question to you, Matt, is wouldn't it be nice if realtors took more of a role in handling that process?
Well, listen, if you're going to try to do some of my job for me, that's always fine. But here, this is how, and this conversation comes up because in other states it's different, right? If you take New York, for example, or I have a friend in Florida who was just going through a purchase, so he was asking me to look at certain things, so I was, involved overseeing that kind of process as well. You want to, the way I view it and the way the state of New Jersey is operated, from my point of view, you want to be a team. You want to be a team, and I always view myself as a team member of the realtor, the attorney, the surveyor, the home inspector. You are the team that the buyer is relying on to get them in this family in this home. And you never want to, even though the fact of the matter is that they are one file of many, hopefully more and more, right, on my desk. But you never want to think of them as just that. You always want to realize that they are people. They are real people. They are with you on one of the most important transactions they're ever going to do in their life. There's a mom, a dad, children, 2 dads, 2 moms,
schools.
That's right. 2 dads, 2 moms, schools, kids, timing, all of these super important things that that you need to remember that is what's also going on. And this is not just a transaction. So I always treat clients like that. You always want to do it like that.
Right.
So the fact that you're there on those listings, it shows how you go above and beyond for your clients. But it's all the opinions of everyone that's seen it goes into that. And at the end of the day, an amendment, if there is a seller's concession, if there is repairs to be done, that all does need to be formalized at the end of the day by the attorneys. So I always have the view on it, to work on it as a team, it's important. And that's kind of the view I take on it. Would it be nicer, as in other states, if realtors did more of it? I don't know. I could see it either way. To be 100% honest, I could see it either way, because me being involved in every part of it where it's going to wind up in an amendment or going to wind up formalized, me having the knowledge of it is beneficial to the clients. So, is the New York system is better than the Jersey? It kind of maybe two sides of the same coin.
I'm not saying taking you totally out of that aspect of the transaction, but rather a realtor playing a more integral part in making and facilitating that, to making it happen to where it's amenable to both parties.
I think the approach that you had of going to what you're saying about the inspections and being involved like that, I think that only more communication leads to problem solving. And I would never dissuade a realtor from being involved like that, because more communication leads to issues getting resolved. I mean, that's absolutely true.
All right. Well, we have to go for our mid-show break right now and give our sponsors some exposure.
You got it. We'll be back briefly and enjoy the show.
The New Jersey Real Estate Show is brought to you by the law offices of Joseph C. Pertiello, located in Wayne, New Jersey. To contact them, call 973-890-7262. That's 973-890-7262. Are you purchasing or refinancing a home? Do you need a free same-day pre-approval? Then call Dean Scaduto from Coldwell Banker Home Loans at 201-322-3456. That's 201-322-3456.
We're back, and thanks for joining in again. Right now, what we're going to do a little mock home purchase. Matt Josephs is going to be the buyer. I'm going to be the realtor. And, of course, Mr. Pertiello is going to be the attorney.
Makes sense.
Sounds good.
All right, Matt, we found the perfect home.
Oh, yay.
You got your pre-approval.
Okay.
You contacted several attorneys. I think you made the choice on who you're going to use.
Yes, I'm going with Matt Pertiello.
Okay, then what you need to do is
I hear nothing but great things about Matt.
Matt's a great guy.
Yeah.
I've known his dad for 20-something years.
Oh, good. Okay.
Well, in any event, what you need to do is get the contract. Well, I'm going to email a copy of the contract to him. This way, when you call him, he'll have that. And then you let me know how you guys make out. I'm here for you 100% of the way. So whatever you need, you just let me know.
All right.
All right, so you've gone through, a few of the steps already at this point, right? You went to Dean Scaduto here at PHH, at a Coldwell Banker, and got your pre-approval, just to kind of, again, give you a little bit of the process, right? They do something there called pre-approval as opposed to pre-qualification. Back before, 2008, they were doing the pre-qualifications, which is you saying, I have a pulse. And
Can I just interject? Sure. Yes, the qualification back then in 2007 was they would put a mirror under your nose. If it fogged up, you were alive, you got the money. Okay.
Right. So now sellers and attorneys advising those sellers are looking for something called a pre-qualification, right? Which, I'm sorry, pre-approval. So I think it's that way instead of the other way, the pre-approval. And so you've given them your tax returns, your bank statements, your payrolls,
Firstborn,
right?
everything.
Firstborn, DNA test. Yep. You've done all that. You get pre-approved so that you knew when you went out with Tim and you were looking at houses at a certain price level that you could afford this home.
Correct.
Right? Then you went out with Tim. Tim, I need 9 bedrooms. I need 6 baths. I need 2 pools, and this is what I need. Yes. And Tim Waller went out there and found you the home of your dreams.
That's right.
So then you put in an offer in the state of New Jersey. Offers are submitted by contract, right? Tim will either bring you into the office or they could do it through e-sign as well. I'm sure they can do it through e-sign as well. He'll prepare a form contract. There's a realtor form contract that is used. It's a generic form of how you submit your offer. The most basic terms of the offer are on there. Purchase price, deposits, right? Mortgage. Are you getting a mortgage or are you not? What's included? Is this chandelier in this room included? Is it not? Things of that nature. We're going to go through the contract in a second, but you submit your offer via contract. Tim gets it out, does the negotiating for you, gets you the best price possible. The seller signs off on it. Now you give me a call.
Okay.
All right. So we've sent you the buyer's information form. We sent you our brochure, which are available, of course, in the office here in Wayne. You have my contact information. Tim sent me over the contract. And that's it. So I review it. I review the contract. I draft a preliminary attorney review letter. Now, it's just that, right? The contract's a form contract. So there's standard changes I make to everyone to make it applicable to, an actual human being.
Right, okay.
So then we get on the phone and we're going to talk about specifics. Now, attorney review is where anything that's unique about your matter is dealt with. Are we dealing with septic? Are we dealing with a well? Are we dealing with oil tanks? Are we dealing with seller's concessions, a way to finance your closing costs, things like that? We deal with that in attorney review. So we get through attorney review. We send out our letter. The seller's attorney gets it back to us. There's usually a round or two of negotiations, and we settle on terms. Past that, the next part's about the deposit. So you've spoken with Dean. He knows where you're going to source your deposit from. It's already been approved. You get your deposits out to me. Again, this is all set up with the, during the contract phase, and you get your deposits out to me. We get that to the other attorney, satisfy that contingency. So one of the biggest hurdles in getting through a contract is the home inspection phase. Tim, would you agree with that?
Absolutely.
Right.
Unequivocally, absolutely, undeniably. Yes.
So in a home inspection, in the state of New Jersey, there's the basic 3 inspections. So you're going to want to do a home inspection, test the roof, the foundation, the electrical, the plumbing, all of the systems of the home. The next test you'll do is a test for wood-destroying insects. Make sure there's no carpenter bees, carpenter ants, or termites on the property. The third test is a test for radon. Radon is a type of radiation in our area that you want to make sure is at a safe level for you and your family.
Right.
During the inspection phase, this is where we deal with whatever else is going on in the house. Is there a pool? Do you want to get the pool inspected? Are there underground oil tanks? Do you want to get that inspected as well? Is there a well? Is there a septic? Any inspection you would want to do, other than the 3 inspections, you can do during that inspection time period as well.
Okay.
That inspection time period generally lasts 10 to 15 days after the completion of attorney review.
So are any of these inspections, is there a mandatory inspection or 2 that you have to get and then the rest are optional? Is that what you're saying?
Well, the one that would be mandatory would be the termite certification.
Okay.
Right, and the reason that's mandatory is because of the lender, right? If you were in a position, cash deal, Matt, I don't know if your first house is going to be a cash deal or not, but if you're in a position...
Let's hope.
If you're in a position for a cash deal, you do not have to do the wood destroying insect report. But any normal lender, there's hard money options, but any normal lender would require a wood destroying insect report that is tested, and if there was an infestation found, would be cleared up.
But if you are doing a cash deal, you would want to have that anyway to make sure that you're not wasting your money.
Of course,
Okay.
of course you would. You would want those basic 3 inspections. You would be hard pressed to find a situation in which you would not do that, except for kind of one option, in which you have a condo, I guess, or a townhouse, but something that does not have ground floor living space. So say you had a condo that was on a 2nd or the 3rd floor.
Right.
You then don't really need to do, although if it was me, I would do it, but you don't really, and some people don't, do the radon test because the radon radiation does sink to the ground floor.
Right.
So if you're on that 3rd floor, you're not really, so you could save the $200. I would always advise doing it, but it's 50-50 if people do it or not.
And more than likely that if there was radon on the 3rd floor, the other people on the 1st and 2nd floor would probably be dead
already.
Yeah,
That's
absolutely.
a good indicator.
Absolutely.
So now if I'm going as a first-time home buyer to an attorney, and the attorney doesn't give me this rundown that you just gave me, mentioning all the different types of inspections, it would be a good thing for the first-time home buyer listening to the show to ask what other types of inspections are there that are available, because I had heard about the termite inspection. I don't know if I've ever heard anybody talking about any of the other ones.
All right, well, and let me say this. One of the things we were talking about before the break is choosing the right kind of attorney. And if this attorney is not advising you not only on just the contract terms, but also on the practicalities of getting this done, that's a big red flag.
Okay.
You want somebody who's going to walk you through like that. And kind of what I'm doing with you right now is what I do with a buyer when we go over the contract, because what I'm doing is kind of going through it in my head, all the provisions, right? And this is kind of the flow of how it goes.
And because we're pressed for time, you normally do it slower, right?
Speed, sometimes I just start talking, and it's an occupational hazard.
But now we've worked our way through the home inspection process.
Okay.
Now you're getting ready for closing, and Matt's going to tell you what
Certainly.
the epilogue is.
So just to wrap up the home inspections, right? So you do your home inspections. If there's any legal defects to the property, you make a repair request to the seller. The seller can respond to each individual request in one of three ways. Yes, I'm going to fix it. No, I'm not going to fix it. Or I'm not going to fix it, but I'll give you a credit. Always want to remember, as a buyer, the seller is under absolutely no obligation to fix anything about that house, right? They can, but they have no obligation to do so. So
that's like a negotiating chip, like you say, well, would you fix this, or what? No, I'm not going to fix it. Well, take $3,000 off or whatever.
Exactly.
Okay.
And sometimes buyers come into home inspections saying, we're going to do this home inspection and they're going to fix everything that's wrong with the house. You don't want to go in there with that expectation, because some sellers won't do anything.
Okay.
But again, it's a pure negotiation. You go back and forth. And again, it's the biggest hurdle because of that. So moving on past the home inspection, we move on to the mortgage, right? So we move on to the mortgage contingency. This is where you're satisfying all the conditions of the loan after your mortgage commitment came in. Now we start working on the mortgage commitment part of it, and now we start headed toward closing, right? Now, one unique thing about my firm is that we do what's called the settlement work in-house. This is the final transactional and accounting work that gets done with the lender. Now, almost every attorney in our area area now uses title companies to do this settlement work. So sometimes they'll quote you a very low legal fee because they're paying the title company $400 to $600 to do the bulk of the work at the end anyway.
Okay.
So they can advertise on the internet, do a buy or a sale for $900, and it looks so much lower. But meanwhile, they're going to hit you with that $400 fee at the end.
And if it sounds too good to be true, it usually is.
Okay, of course.
And you get what you pay for. You're talking about it before. So we get now to the end. So my firm, we've been doing this for so long that we still do the settlement work in-house. So we do all of that negotiating with your lender. Make sure that your transactional numbers are 100% correct. And also, it gives us the flexibility to work the closing dates around the schedules of the parties. Instead of having this title company who literally does 40 to 50 closings a day for attorneys,
right,
we have to work around their schedule. And if anything needs to be adjusted at the end, it can't happen that day because the title company has no flexibility to change a check or change a document when we have the ability to do all of those things. And I can't tell you how often it comes up that flexibility is to the advantage of our client. So we're doing, just real quick, again, at the closing, we're adjusting for city water, sewer. We're adjusting for taxes. We're talking about your closing costs. I don't know if you want to talk about that or not, Tim. We'll talk about closing costs and your mortgage rate and your interest and your escrows and your PMI, private mortgage insurance, if it has to be like that. Moving toward closing, we have the closing for a purchase the closings are always held at buyer's attorney's office. So they would come to my office, do the closing documents, and a trade is made at the end of the day for a check for a key.
And you usually show up an hour before the seller side because you have to close on the mortgage, correct?
Right, yeah. If you're going to set up a closing for 2 o'clock, we would set it up with the seller's attorney that the buyer is coming at 2 o'clock. We do 45 minutes, actually. Again, because we do it ourselves, so it's a little bit more efficient. And so then we'd set up the seller to come at 2:45, and if they're all set, the seller's only there for 15 minutes or so.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. And that's the most basic kind of, right? Obviously it gets more complex, but that's the most basic kind of holistic approach for our first-time home buyer as to what to expect moving forward through the process.
Well, Matt, we really, really appreciate you coming in and sharing this valuable information with us.
Yes,
all the listeners out there and all the buyers, it's very, very informative. And again, we thank you. We're indebted to you. It was very, very informative.
Well, again, I appreciate the invitation from both of you. Feel free to think of me in the future. And Tim, always good to see you. And
likewise, Matt. Make sure you tell your dad I said hello.
Certainly will.
And Matt and I, again, thank you. And make sure you tune in next week as we discuss the importance of mortgage financing and getting pre-approved for your mortgage. Our in-house guest will be Dean Scaduto from Coldwell Banker Home Loans. Thank you and have a great day.